name is John Sharp, and I'm one of the past owners of Hatley Cobb. I graduated from Washington State in Ag Business Management, and then I decided, well, I needed to get a job because my dad sat me down at the kitchen table and he said, you know, son, what do you want to do? And I said, well, Dad, I'd like to come back in and farm with you. And he kind of looked at me and grinned and he said, this farm isn't big enough for you and I both, and I was here first. So I decided to go out and get a job.
Hi, my name is Alan Hatley. I was born and raised on a farm down in Whitman County near Pullman. My great-grandfather homesteaded that area. My grandfather farmed, my dad farmed, and so I would have been the fourth generation. Farm wasn't big enough, you know, for all of us, and so after I finished with school, I went to work up in Spokane.
And then I got an opportunity to go to work for Seattle First National Bank in their farm area. That's where I met Alan. Alan was in there, and both of us worked together for several years.
There was a bank here in Spokane called Seattle First National Bank looking for a farm manager to manage the farms they held as trustee. And I had no idea what that meant, but it was dealing with farms in this area, so I thought, well, shoot, that sounds interesting. Called him up and went up for the interview the next day, never went home. Hired me on the spot, and that's how I got in the farm management business. It wasn't intentional.
Alan and I had always discussed about opening our own little business. Went to the bank, made a proposal to them, and they accepted, and that gave us a good book of business that we could use, and so we started Sharp and Hatley.
Essentially, it's a real estate-based company that manages farmland for absentee owners. We manage farm assets for lots of different types of people. For investors, for hospitals, for banks.
We'll take care of everything else. All you gotta do is worry about cash the check. But basically just taking care of the farm like we would take care of it with our own.
Certain times of the year we had to do certain things. And boy, when spring hit, we had to go out and look at those farms, visit the farmers. And a lot of those tenants are still friends of mine that, you know, that we established a relationship with for many, many years.
I actually cannot remember a time that I didn't live inside of agriculture. All of my life I have had something to do either with production farming or potentially in the processing end of things. I was just raised in the dirt and have always had an affinity to agriculture and the agriculture industry.
My mom is an Italian and my dad is from California, so I had zero agriculture background, but I grew up in Ephrata, Washington, same town as Tim. So I was always kind of on the outskirts of agriculture because it's just such a small rural community. All of my jobs growing up were either at orchards or, you know, out with some sort of agriculture.
Janelle and I were living in Idaho and we entered into the real estate business. We worked with some great companies while we lived in Idaho while we were at graduate school. But Janelle and I, we started to feel a yearning to be a little bit closer to home.
It's very interesting because we were really happy where we were, but we just knew that it wasn't exactly what we wanted to do. And there was just something missing. He really wanted to get back to those roots of agriculture, but he didn't want to farm, he knew that. We wanted to get closer to our family, but we didn't want to go back to Ephrata, we knew that. So really it was just a matter of Tim constantly searching and seeking and trying to figure out what the missing piece was.
And so we started looking for something back in Washington, something that wasn't a 7-hour drive away from home. What I was looking for was maybe a real estate company that I could join with that would be involved in agriculture. I figured there was something up here, and so I started to search. A company by the name of Sharp and Hatley came up. I kind of looked at their website, took a few moments to look it over. I may or may not have done a little bit of math on how old they were and maybe how close they might be to retirement.
I really had no concept as to what farm management even was. So I was like, okay, that sounds cool, like great. But he was really excited about it, and it just seemed to like immediately click for him of what this company was and what they stood for and what it could mean as far as him getting back into the industry.
He just showed up. Literally. Well, I didn't know him. John didn't know him. But he was looking. Looking to get back in the Northwest. He was intrigued by farm management. I don't think Tim really wanted to go back and drive tractor again, but he wasn't involved in agriculture down there, and he wanted to get back into ag.
He just came in his pickup and wanted to talk to us, and so I interviewed him, and talked to him, and then he just started cultivating on that, and that we showed him what we did and all this.
And at that time we weren't ready, and we told him that. I said we just weren't far enough along. Neither John or I were interested in starting to slow down. There really wasn't enough there to bring another person in. But I will say he was persistent.
They indicated to me that they really didn't have a lot of opportunities at the moment inside of the company. However, in a short time, their longtime administrator, Bonnie Albright, was going to start her retirement. And so because she was going to start her retirement, there would be, at the very least, a part-time opportunity. And it clearly was, to me, an opening in the door. And I saw it for what it was, an opening in the door. Now, was it exactly what Janelle and I thought it was going to be at the beginning? No.
Economically, for us, it meant quite a bit of sacrifice because we believed in the company so much and we felt so strongly about it. Really, we moved back to Washington, and we were real estate brokers, so all on commission. And he worked for them just as basically a part-time front desk guy. That they created this little tiny space for him.
I came in and worked with them for a few days a week, and then I went out and found the balance of my living, doing other things.
What Tim brought was the knowledge of irrigated agriculture, which neither John or I had.
As we look at what the company needed, John and Alan were forthright when they brought me in. In 2011, they brought me in and they said, Tim, we know that we're a little behind on technology. We know that it's happening around us, we kind of see it. We need you to streamline this business. The business was functioning correctly, but we need you to streamline some of the things that we do.
The core of the company is the same, and yet I don't think you would recognize it from when it started to now, because he really has brought it into a different era. That's what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to continually progress and build and grow and get better and better. And Tim's really done a fantastic job of doing that, as far as the technology, as far as the systems, as far as our programs, and just the way that we do business.
Time marched on, and John finally decided it was time to kind of start winding down. And so I always say, as John wound down, I wound Tim up. And you can wind him up.
When we first started, we kind of knew some time frames, rough time frames. John was closer in age to retirement than Alan, and had only a few years left before he was ready to start his retirement and move down through that. And so when that opportunity came, we went down and got a value for the business. And then Alan and I essentially bought John's shares. And so he started his retirement. He continued to work in the business for 3 years, which was great. And then Alan and I really, Alan being the majority shareholder at that time and me a minority, I started to buy John's shares. And then by about the time I got John's shares bought, Alan was ready to start his retirement. And then Janelle and I came forward and bought Alan.
Some of these accounts I've been involved with for 40 years. I've been through 3 generations with these people. And that was a part that I was really kind of nervous about letting go, is because you establish that, they rely on you totally. And you establish that relationship, and you don't learn that in a book or anything else. It's just something that happens. And it's the core of the business. You have to have those relationships.
As we were approaching Alan's retirement, Janelle and I had a few conversations regarding the name of the company. And while we felt it was honorable to have our name in the company, and also Alan's name in the company, and previous to that, John's name in the company, we also felt like for the next iteration of this company. We'd really like it to be focused on what we do. And so we came up with the name Farmland Company. Janelle and I felt that it would be good to make the shift at the time that we purchased Alan. And so we did. We made that shift in the next several months, rebranded our company in order to prepare it so that we could run and operate under that name for the duration of our career. You know, we're celebrating the 30 years of this company today. Alan and John had much experience prior to coming together in this partnership. I've been with the company for 12 of those 30 years. And it felt like a good opportunity to really simplify the brand and then make it so that it could be, you know, folks could come in and out of it, employees and partners and things like that could come in and out of an entity that likely could hopefully keep its name for a very long time.
I think it is quite a privilege to be able to have something that is substantial, and not just like a monetary way, but something that feels really meaningful and has kind of changed an industry and does such good. It's a privilege to be able to carry that on, and not a lot of people get to do it.
Currently in Farmland Company, we consist of Janelle and I as the owners, and we have quite possibly the best team that we've ever assembled. And I'm grateful for John and Alan. I'm grateful for their wives who've supported them. And someday there'll be another young fellow who comes in or young gal who comes into our business and somewhere takes a part, grabs a corner of it, and we just take another fold out of the sheet.
It's not hard for us to express appreciation for John and Alan because we would not be here without them. And they gave a kid a chance that really they had no business getting a chance. So just to be able to see something in him, we are forever appreciative because they not only gave him a chance, but they supported us every step of the way.
Happy 30th anniversary, Farmland Company, Hatley Cobb, Sharp Hatley. The iterations that we've gone through were necessary for us to be right where we are today.